if you drank coffee. And so, since you're my imaginary lover, this is how it would go. We would be in bed. It would be 10, maybe 11 o'clock. The sun would be shining through the blinds. I would be curved against your body, which would smell of coconut and sleep. I'd be a little groggy because, knowing me, I'd have had 1 or 2 drinks too many the night before. But even though I'd be tired due to the booze, I'd also be restless due to the Prozac. I'd be blinking quicker than usual, sniffing and scratching to use up energy, and I'd be desperately trying not to scream, "Wake up, wake up, wake up," in your left ear. But I wouldn't make a sound. I'd swallow the words and count my own breaths instead. Eventually, I'd be compelled to touch you. I'd run my fingers down the length of your spine, exploring the skin I was lucky enough to be sharing a mattress with. The more that I touched, of course, the more that I'd want to touch, and the more you'd plunge your face between the pillows trying to disconnect the sensation of my probing hands from the splendor of your sleep. It would take me a while, but in the end, I'd realize I'm simply an annoyance. I'd stop stroking and wait. Nothing would happen for a very long time. In my head, I'd be walking along the edge of the River Kelvin, or jetting off for a long weekend in Paris, or scribbling hearts on the pavement in chalk, or counting the cracks in the cornicing above my head. And all the while you'd be there, tucked into me, both of us going nowhere, both of us dreaming. It might be half an hour before you finally awoke. I like to imagine your first words that day would be, "Hello, my love." But perhaps they'd be, "You look wonderful." Or, "Ugh, I hate mornings." Naturally, I would kiss you, first on the temple and then on the lips, and I would ask politely how you slept. You'd say, "Fine," and ask how I slept, and I'd say, "Fine." And judging by our tossing and turning throughout the night, we would both be telling lies. After that, I would grasp your arm a little harder than usual, a little more urgently than I'd expected, and I would tell you that what I would really, really like to do right now would be to stay in bed and listen to something. Some music, or a radio play, or the sound of each other's voices, though I daren't say the last one in case you got weird. At this point you would nod and say, "A radio play would be nice." And I would almost explode with excitement. I would do anything for you at this moment. If you drank coffee, I would make you a coffee. If you liked toast, I would make you toast. If you wanted the world's biggest hug, I'd give you one of those in an instant. But since you're probably not thirsty, nor hungry, nor looking very touchy-feely right now, as ever, I'd settle for a smile. I'd switch on the radio and slip back into bed, and for a second I'd feel disappointed that you didn't put your arm around me. I'd arch my back and bite my lip, and you'd see me doing so and ask what's wrong. I would say, "Nothing, don't be silly, nothing." And yet you'd wonder for the whole time I was getting back out of bed and getting the radio to "Come on, you bastard, work!" You'd wonder if there was something else the matter. But then there'd be the crackle, grunt and groan of serious voices, and we'd know that the play was about to start. We'd stop talking, sit up straight, pull the covers tight around ourselves, duvet around you, duvet around me, duvet around us, but with no skin touching. I like to think that the play would be about a couple. A couple who'd been experiencing a few problems in their relationship, but who'd ultimately be inextricably, unimaginably, dangerously romantically entwined. I'd inch my legs towards yours, gasping at the sad bits, smirking at the rude bits, looking at you out of the corner of my eye every 5 seconds to check you were still there. At the end of the play, something would of course happen that would prevent the couple from being together. And I'd probably cry. Who am I kidding? I'd definitely cry, but I already know that you wouldn't shed a tear. Strangely though, while chatting about it in the bath afterwards, I'd give it a 7 out of 10, and you'd wager an 8, because that's the way we are. Next, I'd spend about an hour getting ready. It's not ideal when all you have to do is chuck on a t-shirt and trousers and you're the most handsome man in the universe. I, on the other hand, have eyebrows to pluck, hair to straighten, a flabby stomach to disguise, and arms to either hide or highlight depending on my mood and my menstrual cycle. Since I'm currently using suppositories to treat my hemorrhoids, I'd also have to take one of those out of the fridge, yes, fridge, and push it into myself. "Have you taken your bum medicine?" you'd say, and we'd laugh, and it'd be horrible and intimate and wrong, but I'd be glad we could talk about such things or else we'd go mad. While in the bathroom, I'd also tweezer out that black hair I keep getting in my left nipple. I checked my verruca wasn't showing signs of reappearing, and I'd think about how many days it was before I was due to start bleeding again. But you wouldn't care whether or not I was doing any of these things. You'd be on the sofa, fiddling with your iPhone, with a faint feeling of contentment running through your bones. When I was finally ready, we'd leave the flat together, hand in hand, and we'd talk about where to go next. You'd propose going to a cafe in the West End, and I'd suggest a walk along the edge of the River Kelvin. Or jetting off for a long weekend in Paris, joke. Or scribbling hearts on the pavement in chalk, joke, 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 but not really a joke, but yeah, joke. And inevitably we'd end up going to a cafe in the West End. There we'd sit and count the cracks in the cornicing while we talked. We'd talk about the past, and we'd talk about the present, and it's highly unlikely that we'd talk about the future, but I'd keep my fingers crossed anyway, just in case today might be the day. We'd eat muffins and eggs, and you wouldn't have coffee, of course, but you'd have orange juice and tea. And occasionally our eyes would meet and stick in the middle of a sentence, and then we'd carry on again like it was just a blip. You'd tell me how well your work was going, and I'd tell you I was getting sexually harassed by my boss but was too scared to report it, and you'd say that was stupid of me, and I'd get upset, but then you'd say you wanted to chuck a brick through my boss's window, and I'd forgive you. Perhaps, when you weren't looking, I'd pull my top down a little further than usual, hoping a bit of cleavage might stimulate something fiery deep inside you. I'd lick my lips and think dirty thoughts. But I guess we'd probably have had sex 5 or 6 days ago, which would still be fairly recent for you, so I wouldn't want to push my luck. After the cafe, there'd be a trip to buy a puncture repair kit for your bike, and a moment where I'd think I'd lost my wallet, but I'd find it 2 minutes later. And there'd be a discussion about how long it'd be before we'd see each other again, and how short it seemed until it got dark these days. And then we'd bid each other farewell. Me, back to my place. You, back to yours. Simple as that. And this is about the most perfect day I could ever imagine.